And we have with us today Rabbi Pesach Wolicki. He's the director of Israel 365 Action and the co-host of Shoulder to Shoulder, a podcast, which he broadcasts together with a pastor, a Christian pastor. So that's my question to you. Why do the evangelicals support us? And is it sincere? Do they accept us as Jews the way we are? Or are they secretly trying to convert us to Christianity?
When we talk about the evangelicals, Jews have to understand that there isn't one denomination of evangelical Christian. Evangelical is a catch-all term for a whole slew of denominations of Christianity. And they're not all pro-Israel, and they're not all pro-Israel for the same reasons. So you actually have a divide in the evangelical world over whether or not it's a priority to try to convert Jews. So this subtlety of the relationship is really not understood by most Jews. They kind of paint all evangelicals with one brush. That said, to answer your question, why do evangelicals support Israel? So there's a belief that a lot of Jews have that the reason evangelicals support Israel is because of some end times eschatological prophecy in the New Testament about bringing all the Jews to Israel, and only then can there be a rapture. And one of the interesting things about the Christian Zionist world is that I never ever hear that motive expressed for being involved in, for supporting Israel, except from Jews who are suspicious that that's the motive that Christians have for supporting Israel. So why do they support Israel? It's actually quite simple. Throughout the history of the church, since the beginning of Christianity almost, in a couple centuries after the beginning of Christianity, there was a belief that was the mainstream theology of Christians that all the promises made to the Jewish people were transferred to the followers of Jesus, were transferred to the church. And it's called
replacement theology.
Replacement theology. That's what, and a lot of Jews don't realize that replacement theology is actually not in the New Testament. It's something that Christian thinkers came up with a couple centuries later. And the reason that's important is that evangelical Christians, one thing all evangelical Christians share, they really follow the concept of what's called sola scriptorum in Latin, which means that they, after the Reformation, after the break from Catholicism, they look at what the text of the Bible says, and they don't necessarily accept the doctrines that have been inherited by the church fathers. It's very important to note that replacement theology is not in the text of the Bible, and therefore the fact that Augustine and Justin Martyr and other church fathers put forward this idea, and it was accepted for thousands of years. In an Orthodox Jewish context, we would call that Masorah, that there's a halacha, the Rambam said it, and then we accept it as our rule to this day, but they look at the text itself. So what happened was that when the state of Israel was declared, but even before that, when the Zionist movement started, Christian Zionism was part of the Zionist movement, I should add, from the very beginning. Interesting trivia point. One of the earliest Jewish communities in modern Israel that was built for the impoverished Jewish community in Jerusalem is Batei Machse, those buildings in the old city of Jerusalem that are known as like the old neighborhood in the Jewish quarter. Batei Machse was built with money that was raised from Christians, from Methodist Christians in Australia, for the purpose of building housing for Jews in Yerushalayim. I'm pointing this out just to say that Christian support for the return of the Jewish people to the land has been since the beginning. And it's very simple. When they look at the return of the Jewish people after thousands of years to our land, and they look at the Bible, they say, wait a second. The promises of the return of the people of Israel to the land of Israel after a long exile, being scattered to the four corners of the earth, and especially in the last few decades where Israel has become an economic success story, they look at Deuteronomy chapter 30, Dvarim Perek Lamed, which says that even if you are scattered to the ends of the heavens, from there the Lord your God will gather you back. He will bring you back to the land of your fathers, and you will take possession of it, and you will become more numerous and more prosperous than your fathers. They look at those verses and they say, wow, those have been fulfilled. The Jewish people have come back, they've taken possession of the land, and they are now more numerous and more prosperous in the land than ever before. And therefore, the idea behind replacement theology, that the promises made to Israel in the Bible no longer apply, must be false. So you have this huge community of millions of Christians worldwide who reject replacement theology at this point. Now, in terms of wanting Jews to accept Jesus, wanting Jews to convert, most Christian Zionists are of the opinion that it's simply not their job to work this out. There are missionaries in the Christian Zionist movement, but the majority of Christian support for Israel is coming from Christians who simply have set that aside and view their support of Israel as supporting what is clearly God's continuing covenant with the Jewish people.